Hello and welcome to Cocktails and Cookie. My name is Cookie, the sweetest treat you ever did meet, and I have the honor and privilege to be here with two of my most beautiful friends, I would say. We have Cedric and we also have Royce. Hello, you guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Wow.
Awesome. Well. Royce had asked. He texted me, he was like, what should we wear? And I was like, something that makes you feel like a bad bitch. I don't know if I actually said that to you, but you just showed up that way. So I appreciate you just getting the memo somehow.
Well.
So the purpose of us getting together, I just wanted to have a conversation about HIV. I'll start off by saying that my status is negative. So basically, you'll be giving your story and giving us something a little bit educational. You'll be educating me as well as those who are watching. So we can just start it off by saying your name, where you're from, your pronouns, and what your status is.
Hello, everybody. My name is Royce Pearson. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I did say I was from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up a little bit in Morton, Mississippi, and then moved back to Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, well, I am Cedric Gum. Sometimes Trinae Monroe, depends on the day if you catch me, out if I'm performing or not. I was born and raised in Arkansas. I've lived in Baltimore, Minneapolis, Charlotte, and now I live in Atlanta.
Girl, so you traveled.
Okay, I can surround, honey.
Travel.
Which is, kind of goes into this conversation that we're having today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely. And pronouns are he, him, his.
Awesome, cool.
And sometimes she, her.
And sometimes she, her. Sometimes bad bitch. All the time bad
All
bitch.
time bad bitch. Through.
And what is your status?
Oh, I'm positive undetectable.
I'm positive undetectable as well.
Okay, awesome, cool. So you said you were born in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, then gone to Mississippi, then back to Georgia. So what has that been like? What's that?
I feel like it's been a good experience and a good upbringing in my life. It definitely has shaped me in the person that I am today. I've got to experience both country living and city living. So I've seen both sides of it. So I guess I can say I'm straight down the middle when it comes to how I respond to things, how I talk, which kind of confuses people.
Sure.
Every time they ask me if I'm from Atlanta, it's like, yeah, you don't sound like it. But I also don't sound too country, because if you grew up in the country, you have that what are you saying type of accent. Yeah. So it's a good mixture of both.
Gotcha. I got that from I'm originally from Boston. Well, not from Boston, but a little bit outside of Boston. But people expect me to have that.
Mm-hmm.
That Boston twang,
A little twang to it.
That little I don't know. You replace the R with an AH. Anyway, I don't have that, but I totally feel, basically. Okay, cool, awesome. And then you said you are from, one more time.
Arkansas. Yeah, a little small town called Lakeview. Population, good 250, 300 people. That's if you include the animals. It's very small. But I will say, anytime I go back home, the little, what's the sign that has the population on it, that thing?
The welcome sign situation?
That, they lied. I don't want to put my
not the inflating
town out there, but they lied.
So they
talking about
inflating.
700. They said it's 700 and some people there. Child, I don't know
You
where
did
y'all
say
get
if
them
they-
numbers from, but that
You did
census
say if
is
you count the
wrong.
animals.
I've never been to Arkansas, but I know that's a lie.
It's beautiful. That's why we're known as the natural state. So it's a very nice time, depending on where you are, what you enjoy. If you enjoy nature, Arkansas is the place for you. But I will say, growing up in Arkansas, with my family, it was very, you didn't really get those experiences where you were able to truly be yourself. It was a lot of, you're the man of the family, so you have to act this way. Because I was raised by my mother and two older sisters. So being like the, son, so to speak, I had to behave a certain way. And growing up like that was a lot of pressure to not be able to like show emotion, which sort of like, trickled over into my adulthood, which caused me to make some of the decisions that I made. So yeah.
Would you say
Welcome to Arkansas.
would you say the same, similar to you growing up?
Yeah, I would say the same. I never got a really chance to like know my biological father. So I did grow up in a house with my mom. I'm the oldest of 3 kids, but my family's kind of pretty close amongst my grandparents. Like 10 children. There was my mom and my aunt and her 5 kids. So our 2 families kind of like grew up together. So that meant that majority of my time was spent around my mother and my aunt, and also my grandmother. Though my grandfather was present, he was like the first father figure, but it still wasn't like he was there. But I guess in my upbringing with him being around, it wasn't as close, if that makes sense. So my biggest impact on how I live my life now has definitely been impacted by the women in my family. So it did, in a way, kind of have that pressure, like you, of being like, okay, well, you're the eldest male, so you have to act a certain way of what their definition, or the world's definition of what men are supposed to be. So quite similar.
So what year was it when you found out that you were positive?
2012, December 17th, 2012. I was living in Baltimore, and I remember for about, it was like a couple of months, I thought, like, because it was my, going on my 2nd year in Baltimore. And I'm thinking, like, it's my body just getting adjusted to, like,
New city.
new, like, place and all that. So I'm like, oh, it's the flu, it's gonna go away. Ciao. I remember one day I was working customer service at Verizon, and I remember waking up and I was just like, yeah, I'm calling out today. So I was just like, drove to the Total Health Care, which is like the clinic that I was going to at the time for like just regular checkups. So I went there, got a test done. Like they did the mouth swab at the time. And I'm sitting there talking to the lady that's doing my test. We're just chit-chatting, and then I kept staring at the test, and she turned it around so I couldn't see it. And so we were just talking. Then she turned it around again, and she's like, oh. I was like, oh, what? And then that's when like I saw the look on her face. So then I knew like what was going on. So I'm like, at that time, I'm just like numb. I felt nothing at the time. She's like, is there anybody you can call? And I remember calling my best friend, and she thought I was joking because like our relationship is just very like we joke about stuff that we should joke about. Like that's been decades of us doing that. And she was like, stop playing, blah 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 blah. I was like, I'm not. So I'm like boo-hooing on the phone. And she told me, she's like, we're gonna get through this. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself from here on out. And then, I hung up, and then from that moment on, like I went through like that first year of just like complete depression and just like darkness from that moment on. But in the midst of that darkness, I got into treatment. I started going to therapy, which was like the hardest thing for me to do growing up with my family, because it's that whole thing, if something's wrong, pray about it, and that prayer just wasn't working for me.
Did they know at the time you found out, or did you?
My family didn't find out until I did the HIV Treatment Works campaign for the CDC,
Okay.
and it came out.
Wow.
So it was like a nationwide campaign, and that's when they found out. Because I couldn't find the strength to tell them. So I'm like, once it's out, everybody will know, I just won't care. And when like it came out, I remember like, you know, all of my friends posting about it on Facebook and tagging me. And there were a couple of people that were asking me, it's like, well, why didn't you tell us? Or why didn't you do this? And I'm like, reliving those conversations that they had about other people, about, you know, oh, they got that stuff, or, you know, they're passing the bug around and all of this stuff. So I'm like, why would I tell you I have HIV? And I've heard these, like, this very toxic language that you use to describe people that I knew at the time had HIV, but I mean, my just knowledge of it wasn't that deep. So it wasn't until I found out I was positive that I had to educate myself on like what HIV was, how HIV worked, and all of this, so that in turn I was able to go back out and do that same, like give that education to other people once I was comfortable. So after that first year of depression and failed relationships and jobs and housing and all of this other chaos that was happening, I found my voice and I found my purpose, which was performing in theater and volunteering in public health. And then I finally got into public health full time. And the work that I did was absolutely phenomenal. I can say so myself now, looking back, that I did amazing work in public health and I helped a lot of people, and a lot of people helped me. A lot of people poured into me when they didn't have to, which was necessary for me to be able to like pour into other people. So yeah, that's been my journey for the past almost 10 years of living with HIV. Yeah.
And what about you?
I will say I think our stories kind of mirror each other in certain parts, and I would kind of, as I explain it, kind of go through that and say why. But for me, I want to say I found out in probably around like towards the end of maybe 2017 or 2018, and I say those 2 years, and I'm not too like certain of those years, only because I've learned in my adult life now that this took a few years to kind of get to this point, but I realized that when things are very much traumatic for me, I kind of like pack them away in that moment instead of dealing with them in that moment, and just bury them until the time comes to where either they resurface on their own or something triggers it to where I kind of like start dealing at that moment. So me being diagnosed was one of those situations. Quite similar to you, when I found out the person was telling me, we were talking, having a casual conversation, did the swab and everything like that, waiting for the test results to come back. And then that's when the conversation went like, oh, you know. And I was just like, and meanwhile he's telling me, and I'm just like this, okay, all right. And I did not get the question of, is there any way you can call or anything like that, which, you know, at the time I didn't think about it. But yeah, like he told me everything I needed to know, gave me some information as to what the next step should be in my case. I didn't start treatment right away, only because I feel like the system that was in place wasn't too efficient in regards to getting me like the information I needed and starting the treatment process, until I ended up getting more information about a different clinic that was amazing in the beginning of my course of like getting on treatment and stuff like that. So it took a minute for that part to happen. But I didn't tell my family. I actually didn't tell anyone for a good while because of just how I live my life mostly. I grew up just being the black sheep in the family. So typically that means that you're basically like the loner of the family. You don't really have that, like you have a connection with your family, and certain people you connect with them like you're closer with them more than others. But as a whole, you're just always like the odd person out. So things like that, and that actually goes back to and kind of trickles over into like just me being gay in general. that part of my life was always a separate dynamic from my family. I have a huge like loving and support system amongst my friends. I just didn't tell them right away because, again, I knew about HIV and things like that. But like you, before being diagnosed, I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have the knowledge to be forthcoming and powerful to stand up and like, hey, this is me. You know, what I can do to educate others. Because I'm pretty sure once you tell somebody, it's going to be questions after question after question. And one of the biggest questions is that I was afraid to answer is like, well, how did this happen? Or do you know who did this? Or how did you do this? So it's like I wasn't in the headspace to tackle all of those questions just so soon because I knew that was going to be a thing. So I wanted to take some time to educate myself more, prepare myself more, and then that's when I started telling like my friends, like close friends. Still didn't tell my family yet. I actually didn't tell my family, and well, my family didn't find out until last year when I was part of Project Innovate, and my showcasing was about the project that I created and campaign that I created called Good Days, and in that moment of finding persons to be a part of my project and telling their story about HIV and thriving with it, I felt as though that I couldn't like not be a part of it and just allow other persons to tell their story without me trying to put this on and show them, but also I have to be the person to kind of live it as well. So that's when I decided to be a part of my own campaign situation and had the showcasing, and that's when my family found out. So, yeah.
When your parents found out, what was that like for you?
It was like a relief in a way, similar to a relief when my family found out that I was gay. Quite similar to you, it was one of those things that once it's out there, and I'm okay with addressing any questions that come about or just standing up like, yes, that's true. And I told myself, I treated it as the same as how I told myself when I was realizing I was gay or whatnot. I never thought that I had to go into a room or go to people and say, hey, I'm gay. Oh, hey, I'm gay. Hey, I'm Royce, I'm gay. Like, I never thought I needed to do that. I stand firm in believing that if someone asks me, yes, I am, and then keep it pushing. And that was the same when it came down to being HIV positive. When my family, did find out, it was a relief factor. They kind of commented on the post because at the time Project Innovate was live on Facebook and stuff like that. The showcasing was, and so they were commenting like they didn't know things of nature and stuff like that. And they, still support me to this day. So it was a relief factor for me.
That's beautiful.
So Cedric, you said you perform, and performing was pretty much the light in the darkness for you.
Yes.
So how were you introduced to performing, and what's that been like?
Well, my degree is in theater, and that's literally the reason I moved to Baltimore was for a theater internship. And after completing the internship and it wasn't until, and I was still like doing theater while I was working at Verizon. And once I got the diagnosis, it's like all of that, like that light went out. Like that first year, it was just, I literally, like I lost my job, apartment, everything, like relationship, like went to hell. And it wasn't until maybe a year and a half into therapy where my therapist asked me, she was like, so what brings you the most joy in life? And that was a question that I wasn't prepared for because going through what I'm going through or what I was going through at the time, happiness wasn't something that I could focus on because I'm like, I'm dealing with shit that I don't even know about, I'm still educating myself on like HIV at this point. Like a year in, I'm still Like I had the knowledge and the verbiage to get out and like talk to people, but I'm still learning like certain nuances of like, what's like this medication, like are there any interactions? Like if I have to, take Tylenol or, an antibiotic for something, like are there drug interactions? So I'm still learning like all of these things. And like happiness wasn't something that I felt was in my near future. And when she asked me that, I'm like, I remember the conversation to this day. I was like, girl, I don't know. And like, that was like literally that was like my response. I'm like, girl, I don't know. She's like, so I want you, like, that was my homework from that session. She's like, I want you to go home and write down what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And we'll discuss that at our next session. So I went home, and I created that list of like everything that I wanted to do, and the people that I wanted to meet. And the first person that was at the top of the list, everybody knows this, it was Kelly Rowland. Mm-hmm. And literally, I ended up meeting her probably like a year later at a concert. And it was my ex that actually brought me the ticket to see her. And so it was my therapy that really brought me home. And I would say that theater and performing was home for me. And then once I got into public health, granted I started out doing public health and like performing, but then my primary focus was just public health, because I wanted to be able to impact as many people as possible, because I didn't want people to feel like that loneliness that I felt for that first year. I didn't want people to feel like there was, nothing else out there. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was, I wanted them to know that, keep living your life, whatever it is that you wanted to do prior to this diagnosis, that is still possible. And I wanted to be able to not only like tell them that, I wanted to be able to actually live that and show them that I'm not just telling you this, like I am living proof that everything that you wanted prior to that day, prior to that conversation with that person or whatever the case may be, like all of that is still possible. So yeah, like that's where my journey led to me, like with therapy and getting back to theater and performing.
That's beautiful, and I love that you have those two outlets to like cater to just that.
It's been rough getting back into it now, because like I went from theater to public health, and then I'm like going into aviation. Now I'm trying to get back into performing. It's like, girl.
Listen, go ahead, just brush that dust off your shoulders.
Tisha Campbell said, it's the journey.
And Royce, you do photography.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And so what was that? Would you say, is that the light that was in your darkness, or?
In a way, that was a light that was in my darkness. Prior to me being diagnosed, I was doing photography, and that was like in the early part of me like figuring out if I wanted to make this into like a company, a business, and like go hard with this. So I was still developing that aspect of things. So I had a few projects here and there. But along with photography, it was after like making my rounds and telling my close friends, it was them talking to me and reminding me that this is not like the end. This is not, what's it? It's like be all, something like that.
The end all be all.
Yeah, end all be all situation. In the back of my head, I knew that. So it was the fact that I had all of those persons in my corner and they were rallying around me to like pushing me to want to continue, like reminding me that I am good at what I do. I create magic. I have an eye for this photography thing and whatnot. And that kind of continued to stir me in the directions like understanding that this is my light. Like I have to keep doing this. So photography has been that light in the darkness for me. It gives me a sense of purpose, a sense of completion, I've noticed that I'm always in my element when I'm doing photography. It gives me a chance to create the voice that I want the world to see, coming from a person who is HIV positive, undetectable, and thriving in this world. So yeah, I would say photography has been that light for me.
Awesome. Well, you actually segued me into my next question for you. So this question, specifically for you, Royce, what would you want to tell the world about those living with HIV?
I think I would want to tell the world that it is okay to never like treat the person who is HIV positive any different than you would be treating them prior to them, telling you this news of themselves. It is more. They are more than what they're telling you that has happened to them. They still live. We still live. Not they. We still live full lives. We operate in the same way that we've been operating even before us finding out ourselves and then telling the world and sharing it with us. We are not the evil that you think that we are when you find this out. We are progressing. We are progressive. We are, at the end of the day, still human beings. We bleed the same color and shade of red that you bleed when you get cut or we get cut. We are all one persons, one people. We just that aside, we're just also magical too. So
Magically delicious.
there you go. We're taking what has happened to us, and we are choosing each and every day to still get up, thrive, and live as we have been before.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I know I said specifically for you, Royce, but same
I don't know. What would I want people to know about HIV? That's the question, right?
Well,
Because when you said it was for him, I was like, oh, child, I ain't got to answer this.
what would you want to tell the world about those living with HIV?
What would I want to tell the world? You really summed it up. Like, we are, at the end of the day, like, we're your brothers, your sisters, your teachers, your doctors. We are, we're you. A plus or minus sign, like a negative or positive result, doesn't take away from the fact that we are human. Me being an artist, I can claim that now because I'm getting back to it. Me being an artist, I definitely want to have my work impact as many people as possible, like it was when I was doing public health. I want to have that same impact. I want to be able to educate. I want to be able to entertain. And letting the world know that people living with HIV, we're, like you said, like we're some magical as people. It takes strength to be able to thrive in a world that is sometimes so negative in the way that they treat and talk to or about individuals living with HIV. So I want them to know that it's okay to educate yourself on HIV. It's, a good search, cdc.gov/HIV. Like, there are other websites that I can't list off the top of my head, but if you type in, like, on Google,
those keywords
facts about
and
HIV, it'll get you,
Where you need to
lead you
get.
to some very good information. And for those who are positive, letting them know that HIV treatment works. Those individuals who are negative, educating them on like pre-exposure and post-exposure options that are available for them. So I want to be able to infuse like both my public health work and my knowledge with my actual, entertainment and, my star qualities, because, Your girl is coming. But yeah, I just want the world to learn to respect, learn to educate, and in turn, just learn to be a decent human being.
You mentioned something in regards to. I just want to add, it's okay to ask questions,
Yeah.
but respectfully, and educate respectfully as well.
I think now, the times that we're in, it's more important to just like really also ask those questions, ask politely, like you said, and like educate one another, because like it's just important. We all just need to be educated in this stuff.
And that's on both sides too. Like you just have to have that openness to receive someone approaching you about this, and it's not always negative. We can tell when it is negative, but on both sides, we have to be open enough to receive a person who is very much so inquiring, like, okay, I want to know, and don't take an offense to them asking the question.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we could essentially get to a point to where we don't have the stigma that's surrounded around HIV. It's both parties' responsibility to do the work. And if you have one side doing the work and this part's not, you're always gonna butt heads, and nothing's gonna get resolved. So everyone has to, on both sides, has to be have the open mind to receiving on both ways.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming out and having this conversation with me. As I said before at the very beginning, I think it's just important that we all just get to know each other and like see each other through the lens of radical acceptance and love, and know that we are all one. And again, it's just educational for me and for those that are watching. One last question before we go, and then I get to snatch this wig off. The last question that I have would be, what would you say to your younger self?
Ooh, child.
But since I went first to start this off, you can go first to end this.
Hey, with my bees. What would I say to my younger self? I would definitely tell myself that you're smarter and stronger than you have always given yourself credit for. Because a lot of times I would take the back seat just so that like everybody else could like have that spotlight, knowing that it was in me the whole time, like and just to believe in myself more, to believe in like my talent, my worth. Ooh, that was a big one. Like my worth was at an all-time low when I found out my status. So telling my younger self to know that you're worthy and that you're destined for greatness. Yeah. So, all right, your turn.
I think I would tell my younger self is that your voice will carry you, your uniqueness will carry you, your creativeness will carry you. You are worthy of all the things that have been blessed upon you thus far, and the things that are coming in the future. And to tackle them head on. There's going to be a time to where you do have a period of like downing yourself, want to make yourself small when you enter spaces, and you don't need to do that. The people are waiting for you. The world is waiting for you to shine your light, speak up, and tell your story, and walk in that.
Walking with the hell? Okay, walking with the hell haircut. Awesome. Well, cheers. Thank you guys again.
Child. All right.
Well,
It's a good clink, clink.
Clink, clink, clink,
Just
clink.
taking your wig off into greatness, into believing in yourselves, into great things in the future. All that.
All that.
Please
Cheers.
get that put on a shirt.
Cheers. Yeah.
That was so good.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Cocktails and Cookie. My name is Cookie, the sweetest treat you ever did meet, and I'll see you next time.